The developers of Hogwarts Legacy promised us in their gameplay trailer that we were going to be living the unwritten story in the upcoming game. And this may be the case, however, and go ahead and grab your comfort blanket because you might need it for this next statement. This may not be your unwritten story. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a bad story. It just may not be the one that you actually have a say in. Now, I say this because we learned a lot about the development of the game during the Autodesk event that they put on recently, and reasons why the game had its initial delay back in 2021. Now, that delay was from world issues. I would say which issue, but YouTube is a bit picky on that topic, so I think we'll skip that one for now. But we learned that they created the cinematics with real actors and how they implemented these scenes and animations into the game. Actually, it was really interesting stuff. If you're into it, I recommend checking it out. However, it got me thinking that this game may not be as open to player decisions and adaptive as many of you and myself would hope it would be. So let's talk about why Hogwarts Legacy may not be your unwritten story. We're not going to go over too many of the details, but I do want to touch on the most important parts of the struggles that the development team had, specifically on the cinematic production portion of it, and why that matters. So how they would set up the scenes and animate it into the game itself is they had a small team of talented actors and actresses that were hired out of Canada. Each played multiple roles. They were in bodysuits and recorded their movements and expressions, and they were put into the game in real time. This is not a new technology. I'm sure some of you have seen this in other games, but that wasn't the end of the cinematic production. After they did all this, they had to go back to their original 50 actors that they had in the US, who they were unable to use because of those world events. And they had to go back and do what is called ADR, or Automated Dialogue Replacement. Basically, they're using the actors' real voices, or the ones who should have been in there, and replaced the physical actor sound in a more controlled environment for sound. Thus, you had the clean animation and the clean character voices as they should be. Now, this sounds fairly cut and dry and even quick. However, they had quite a struggle. Now, I'll let Nathan Hendrickson tell you about what are some of the struggles that they had.
With actors already cast and outsourcing partners in place, we were ready to go into full production. But in a matter of weeks, all of those plans fell apart. With everyone now stuck at home, including our actors, and most US-based performance capture stages and recording studios closed, we had to find solutions to problems we never expected.
All right, so why is this important? Well, you see, other games have also done this same strategy in recording actors and actresses and then putting it into a game, primarily into a single-player game. I mean, there have been many games at this point do that. You have Cyberpunk 2077, you have God of War, you have Death Stranding. In all of those games, there are only 2 that have any sort of multiple endings. So Cyberpunk 2077 has 5 endings. Now, all of these games took within 5 to 7 years to make, like Hogwarts Legacy. The only one game with multiple endings that actually matter is Cyberpunk 2077. And what I mean by actually matter is you have to make decisions in that game in order to actually get a different ending. Now, in God of War, there is a second ending, but it's more like a completionist ending on a certain difficulty, and not so much about a decision that you've made towards the progress of the game. And in Death Stranding, there is only one ending completely. I say this not because I think the games are going to be similar exactly how all 3 of those play, but I say this because with this sort of technology being used, it would take so many man hours to implement the cinematography, to implement the ADR, to get all of the people on the same page, especially while the world event was going on that we had. The amount of man hours to have even more than 2 endings necessary would be so very much, as you have to remember the steps into actually getting it is you have to have some animations, and then once you have animations created, you can get these actors to record, and their animations will be put into the game. After that is done, you have to have the other actors come back and put the ADR voice in, and then you have to have the very final draft of everyone coming together on the character creation or the animators to making sure that it's all bug free and working as intended. Maybe that means going back and re-recording. There are a lot of steps when it comes to this technology. And obviously, it's pretty freaking sweet. All right, I'm very happy that Hogwarts Legacy team Avalanche has chosen to use this because it just looks flawless. But I do think that means that we're not going to be getting choices that really matter towards the story ending. So even though maybe you choose to be a dark wizard the entire game, I don't necessarily think that means we're going to have a different outcome, because the amount of man hours required to do that is phenomenally large. The prime example we have here of a very recent example is going to be Cyberpunk 2077. As we know, that game was re-delayed like, oh man, 4 or 5 times. And then when it finally came out, it was terrible. Now, obviously, I don't think Hogwarts Legacy is going to be bad, as they're in really good hands. Avalanche is a great development team, but they're still needing to be realistic with their times. All things considered, 5 years for a game as large as this with that many features, and then also expecting multiple endings and choices that actually affect the story in the game, I just don't see it. I don't see us actually being able to make decisions like, let's say we want to help with the Goblin Rebellion and we want to give them back the ancient magic. I don't think we're going to have decisions like that. I think that any decision we have in the game is going to be more like, oh, in that one quest, you decided to be merciful, but that really didn't matter towards any outcome of the actual game itself. Maybe that one character's, reputation with you is squandered now because you chose to be selfish. But as far as the grand scheme, I don't think we're going to be filling this large, you let everyone down or you're this great hero type of thing. And I'm not exactly upset about that, as they did promise an unwritten story, which is what we're going to get. I mean, we don't have any true idea of how the story is going to be, but I do think the marketing team really kind of made you feel like it was going to be your unwritten story, meaning you're going to be making the decisions for the story and getting to be able to have a different ending or two, which I'm very hopeful for. But at this point, basically knowing how they've done their development and all the struggles they've had going in with it, I really don't see it happening. But let me know in the comments what you think, if this is going to be a game where we're going to have decisions or not, or anything in between. If you like this video, I guarantee you're going to like some of the other videos that I'm doing. I do have a really cool challenge video coming out. I don't have a time on it yet. I've been putting lots of hours in thinking about it and optimizing it. But do know that if you enjoy challenge videos, this channel, once the game actually releases, is going to be big on challenge playthroughs and also guides. So if you're into any of that, make sure you subscribe, because there's going to be tons of Hogwarts Legacy content and other games to come here in the future. If you liked, leave a like, sub if you want to, and there's going to be more content to come soon. Peace!